Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, regardless of what time this lecture finds you. I hope it finds you well. For week 2, we will look at the agendas and outcomes for this lecture for Journalism 102, and our goal will be to start the readings, start to explore journalism, and start practicing writing within the news brief style, or really practicing an understanding of the news brief style. And let me even change that while I'm talking to you. Practice, and this is the whole point of journalistic writing, is even editing, practicing and a better understanding of the news brief style. So, what does that mean? It means we're looking at newsworthiness and point of origin, and even how the history, the story of journalism began. So for this week, it's pretty simple, realistically, a lot of contact with reading. You will see that I have a reading in here for Chapter 1, the story of journalism, which is pages 9 through 15. There's an assignment on page 16 that we're not going to do right now. I'm not really worried about that. Instead, for this week, we're going to, like I said, we're going to be dealing with news brief writing, which is, that assignment is due Monday, February 6th. And this is a discussion format assignment, so you have to make an initial post and then respond to 2 other posts for full credit. So before we move forward, let's look at what that looks like. When I say writing, unfortunately, I mean reading it, because you start anything by reading first. So before you can really write a news brief, you have to understand what you're looking for. And this week, I want to look at your favorite media sources and have you share 3 news briefs you have identified based on the lecture that we're listening to right now in Module 2. And you will be able to respond to 2 other students' posts during the newsworthiness, or discussing the newsworthiness of a brief versus the more traditional news stories you have interacted with historically. So the way this kind of works is a couple things. First, we're going to look at an actual news brief breakdown that I have created. So we have to define what a news brief is, or what's in a news brief. And a news brief is exactly what it sounds like, a brief news story. And the news brief has ties with traditional media formats, but for our purposes appears in the following, but not exhaustive list. I'm sure that you can find other examples, including print newspapers, magazines, and digital editions of media sources. And we will look at some of those momentarily. A standard news articles, I wrote that really wrong, I apologize, can be 300 to 700 words long, whereas a news brief should ideally be 100 words or less. And usually this is set into a calendar or into calendars, or for quick and succinct information related to upcoming events. It also is used as a plug to get people to go into the newspaper, or in the case of a website, to click a link and follow it, where, clicks count. So the news format, or the news brief format, typically follows the 5 W's and how format, which, I said format a lot in that sentence, I'm sorry, which answers specific questions: who, what, when, where, why, and you'll see that I have sort of and how in there, which is really a 6th, but really the 5 W's are the ones that count. And that is actually attributed to Aristotle's ethics, right? Nicomachean Ethics, which is cited from Wikipedia, if you're interested in where that originates from. So it goes way, way back. It's an antiquity type of inquisitive writing. It's answering questions. So we can close this. This template is available if you're looking for this information sheet in files. But let's go back now and actually look at what that means. So I've just pulled out, and again, you can do anything. You could do AP News and pull up literally Associated Press. Reuters has them. All these have them. And you'll see that what we see on an AP website like this one is a lot of headline writing, little tidy blurbs, things like that. You could find, even on, as I point out, you will find things at the front of a newspaper or a news source, an aggregator like this one, where they're using headlines to lure you in. But let's look at another one. So this is the Nevada Independence website, and you'll see that they have these little bullet points, these little bugs, these plugs, if you will. So they usually have a headline, and they usually have information about when it was written, and then some kind of explanation of what's going on. Now, that's one format of what you could expect to see in a traditional news brief. Another one would be like a calendar of events, which is who, what, when, where, and why, and how. Remember? So what you're looking for is those things that answer those 5 questions, usually in 100 words. But if in these cases, they're usually like ways to lead in. Now, I'm telling you, you can use whatever source you want. And if you're saying to yourself, I don't have a favorite newspaper or a favorite point of contact with news, well, there's options. So I'm going to show you one that is really good, and it goes back to my newspaper days when it was important to be able to see what was going on around the country from a newspaper perspective. And this website is still available and active. So it's kind of a cool thing to look at. It's freedomforum.org. And if you go there, you'll see today's front pages is one of your options. Let me go back just one and you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is the website, freedomforum.org. And then when you see today's front pages, you can click on it. There's a lot of really cool things on here. If you're into the way things look in media or how things are written, headline writing, stuff like that, to get a sort of early lead on what that looks like for yourself, you can pick your media, your medium. I am a fan of newspapers, obviously, or I wouldn't be showing you this, only because, well, I've spent a long time working in them. One of the really cool features of this website is that it has a map view. So we can literally zoom in and see all the newspapers that are connected implicitly with this website. You can't make this bigger is the only problem I have ever had with it, so you got to kind of navigate around. But we can look at almost any paper. And I'm going to go and show you one of my favorite papers, which is a really kind of weird one. And if it will let me open it, and they have not posted this week. So the Savannah Morning News is usually right here. There are some great papers that are connected to that paper. So since we cannot look at that one, we will slide on over here. So it looks like a lot of papers for today's edition of the paper are not available to look at that I would normally look at. I think this is Laredo. Yeah, I don't think a Laredo paper is really good to look at. I came from Texas, so I'm really accustomed to looking at Texas papers. That's the Temple Daily Telegram. So let's open the front of the Temple Daily Telegram. So when we do this is what this page looks like. Now, this is this is where I got my roots. I learned how to do newspaper design a long time ago from this organization, from this news identity. You will see that there's information at the top of these. We can click on, I'm trying to give you a better view, and let's see if it'll let us zoom in. So as we scroll down, we see these sort of plugs like this. But what we're really looking for, like if I were doing this assignment, I'm trying to give you a good example, I would look for a lead like this one, right? This kind of fits the role. These first 2 paragraphs would fit what we would define as a news brief. So from a social media standpoint, like if you're looking at a social aggregator like the one I showed you, or even this live website newspaper, you would see that this does the same thing as these first 2 paragraphs in a newspaper. And this works for a wide variety of media outlets, in that they have to tell you up front. It's called the inverted triangle, and we will definitely get into it, but it's a form of writing that puts all that information that is relevant in a news brief up front for those conversations. So that is kind of like if you're trying to figure out where we're going with it and why it's important and how it connects. Well, it connects because once you can learn how to write a news brief, then you can start to understand how that turns into a full news story. So that is what we're doing this week. That is what you'll do with this assignment. Pick a web page, a newspaper, a magazine. You can't really do it with books because they don't usually follow that journalistic writing style. So I would stick to those 3 that I mentioned: website, newspaper, or magazine, to sort of figure out what kind of briefs you would want to put on here. You can either take PDFs of them, you can take a picture of them, or you can copy and paste it as plain text. I'm not really picky on the format. Understand that this still requires you to make responses to 2 other students' posts by February 6th. And for that, that's what we're doing this week. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me through the inbox, which is right here. Or if you absolutely need to, you can use the Copy House. Again, as I tell everybody, the Copy House is great other than I don't get information that you posted there, and so I have no way of following up right away. It may take a couple days. So, again, if you have any questions, please reach out and ask me, and we can get them resolved. If you're still waiting for your book, let me know, and we can figure out some kind of workaround for this week. Otherwise, have a good week, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.